The Drake cutter looks like a flying dumpster, handles like a brick, and somehow still manages to be a useful starter ship. Today we're going over the Generalist Starter Pack and why this ugly little box actually fills a pretty interesting role. Access is at the rear and there are 2 buttons on either side to lower the ramp. Whoa, that door sounds like it's on its last leg. That seems to be a pretty common theme with Drake ships since the manufacturer has never exactly been known for quality engineering. Right off of the entrance on the right side is access to the ship components hidden behind these metal bars. The cargo bay itself looks bigger than it really is, and that becomes important once you start trying to load cargo. Moving into the living space, you've got a bed on the right side and a fire extinguisher on the left for when the shoddy Drake wiring decides to catch on fire. Toward the back is a bathroom that doubles as a shower unit, and I'm not gonna lie, this toilet and sink combo looks like it came directly out of a prison movie. Moving further toward the cockpit, there's also a small storage closet for extra gear and supplies. The cockpit continues Drake's usual design philosophy of exposed wiring and good enough engineering. To the right side is a small weapons rack. Directly ahead is the pilot's seat. Honestly, the pilot seat animation is actually pretty cool. The chair rises up, turns around, and slides into position to access the controls and viewports. Powering this thing up is about as smooth as 20 grit sandpaper. One neat feature is that the cutter can deploy armor panels over the cockpit side windows. Now here's where the cutter starts showing some limitations. The cargo bay looks like it should hold more than it actually can. The cutter can handle up to 2 of the 2 SCU cargo crates, but it feels like you should be able to squeeze more in there. Unloading it can also be a bit awkward if the boxes aren't lined up correctly, like I did just there. Now here's why people still buy this thing despite all of its flaws. This is the ATLS Geo mining mech, and the cutter is one of the smallest ships in the game that can actually transport one. That gives newer players access to gem mining without needing a much larger or more expensive ship, and honestly, this is the point where the cutter finally starts making a lot more sense. Once deployed, the ATLS lets you mine smaller gem deposits planetside for a pretty decent profit. The cutter's small size makes it pretty easy to land almost anywhere, unload the mech, do some quick mining, and move on to the next location. So while this thing absolutely isn't winning any combat awards, which we'll go over later, it does give players a relatively cheap path into one of the more reliable money-making loops in the game. As far as hauling goes, the cutter's low cargo capacity means you're going to be making multiple trips even with the smaller cargo contracts. Courier missions are a much better fit for this ship. If you missed my Aurora Mk II review, those are basically package delivery missions using much smaller hand-loaded boxes. I took the cutter on a very low-risk bounty mission just to see how it handled in combat. Even against another small ship, the cutter struggled to do meaningful damage. The agility of this thing feels like a turtle trying to dogfight, and staying on target was a constant struggle. Eventually, I did manage to finish the mission and limp my flying brick back to the hangar, but honestly, I feel like the target ship took pity on me and just stood still for the last few shots. The cutter isn't a bad ship, but combat clearly isn't its job.
Great. Let me cross them off the list and get you paid.
Landing in the hangar, repair and refuel costs are basically nothing since I used little to no fuel and didn't use any missiles. Looking at the loadout manager, the cutter uses all Size 1 components with only a single slot for each major system. By default, the ship comes equipped with 4 Size 1 missiles and 2 Size 2 guns. The loadout is pretty minimal overall, which fits the cutter's utility-focused role more than a combat-focused one. As for the pledge store, the Generalist Starter Pack currently comes in at around $60 and includes the cutter, game access, a starter hanger, 6 months of insurance, and some starting UEC. The cutter isn't a ship I personally enjoy flying. It's slow, it's undergunned, and it feels like it's held together with duct tape and bad decisions. But despite all of that, it fits into the wider universe surprisingly well. If your focus is combat, there are much better starter ships available. But if you want a small utility ship that can haul gear, run courier missions, and transport an ATLS or ATLS for gem mining, the cutter suddenly starts making a lot more sense. Compared to the Aurora, I do think it's slightly overpriced for what it offers, but the mining utility gives it a legitimate progression path for players that don't care much about combat missions. It may be ugly, but for the right player, the cutter actually works. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you make a better decision, or at least helped you avoid a bad one, hit the like button. It helps more than it probably should. For more straightforward breakdowns of starter packs, ships, and gameplay in Star Citizen, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll keep cutting through the noise so that you don't have to. Links to everything I covered are in the description, along with my socials if you want updates between uploads. If there's something you want reviewed next, drop it in the comments. I'm always looking for what's actually worth your time. Make informed choices, fly smart, and try not to learn anything the hard way like the rest of us. I'll see you in the verse.